Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Daniel and I help portrait photographers just like you create meaningful images and successful portrait photography businesses. In today's session, what I'd love to do is talk about my client image workflow from start to finish. So let's get started. The very first step in my workflow doesn't actually happen at computer level, it happens at camera level. When I'm going out to a paid client shoot, I'm making sure that the camera system that I'm using shoots to 2 card slots. There's nothing worse than shooting to a single card slot and taking that SD card, putting it into your system and realizing that it's corrupt. I've seen this happen multiple times. So make sure if you're going out to a paid client job that you've got a camera that's suitable for the job, especially if you're shooting professionally. Making sure that you have a system that shoots 2 copies of your client's images is the first step that you want to have in place. In the second step, what I do is I take that SD card right out of my camera. I don't leave it around on my desktop. I plug it into my computer and I start the backup process of those images right away. So on my desktop, you'll notice that I've got Work Drive and Work Drive Backup. These 2 drives talk to each other through a little bit of software that I got installed here called GoodSync. GoodSync helps me make sure that the 2 drives on my computer are always in sync and always backing up. So I'll then move over to creating the folder for my client. And I like to work with the name of my client and the date of the shoot. I'm going to go new folder and I'm going to create it by date first. So that'll be 01-09-2025 and my client's name. There we go. And if I double click here, it's going to pop to the top of the row. So we're going to open up my client's folder and then we're going to go over to the SD card and we are going to select all the images in the SD card. And I'll pay attention to the amount of files that it's been selected over here. So you can see we've got 494 of 494 selected. So this is just making sure that we've got all of our images selected on that SD card. I'm going to simply drag and drop it into the folder that I've just created for my client. And what will happen is all of these raw files from that card are going to be copied onto this system right here. So once all of the images are copied over from the SD card, I'll just make sure quickly that I've got the same amount of images, and I'll usually scroll through them just to make sure that they've all copied over successfully and we haven't got any errors. So you can see here we've got 494 images right here, and it matches with the 494 images that we've got on the SD card. So we know for sure that we've got an exact copy of the contents of our SD card on our folder. So I'll go back in the folder structure here, and I just want to cover this off as to why I go for the date and name. Now, I've got several clients that come to us several times of the year, and if I got it going by date, I know for a fact that I won't have a duplicate folder set up for that year. So, for example, if this client came to me in June or July, the date would be different because it's for this year. So I'm never going to run into an issue where I'm going to overwrite somebody else's images. So this is why I've got it structured like this. The other reason why I've got it structured by date and name is because it's easier to find the files on the operating system or inside of Lightroom, as you'll see in a moment. Moving on to step 3. Once I've got that client folder in place and I've verified that all of my images are inside of that folder, I'll go over to my GoodSync software and synchronize the 2 drives so I've got a second copy of my client's work. I'll then move over to Lightroom and I'll make sure that I'm in the library module. I'll move Lightroom away a little bit and I'll go and grab that client folder and simply drop it into Lightroom like this, and it will give me a preview of all of the images before I start the import process. And you'll notice that I haven't got copy as DNG or copy or move, I've got it add. So what will happen here is that those images will be referenced from the external drives. I'll then make sure that I've got my build previews set to standard because this is just a simple and quick way of importing the images. You can also go by embedded and sidecar, which is even faster, and I will click the import button. This will make sure that all of my images are imported into Lightroom, referencing those external drives. Now, again, you'll see here, everything is by date and by client's name, and this makes them very searchable. If I want to go and search out a particular client, like for example, Susan or Zuzka, I'll type in Zuzka, and there is our model shoot right there, and all of her images are in one place, and you'll see that it's also by date and by name. It makes it very, very easy to search for your client's images inside of Lightroom and also via your operating system. So I could type Susan inside of the operating system, and it will find that folder called Susan, and that will be the one with that date. So you see here, it's fetching those initial previews, and it's importing all of those images into Lightroom very, very quickly. Moving on to step 4. Once I've got all of my client's images imported into Lightroom, I would then cull out all of my favorite images. Now, I'm not going to go into the culling process in this video. I've got a separate video linked above. You can go and watch it there. But what I'll do is I'll take you over to a gallery that's already been culled. So in this case, I culled down from, I think it was 400 or 500 images down to my favorite 186 images. So what I do in this step of the process is go and select all of the images in my gallery. So you'll notice that I'm in the grid view right here, and I'll move over to the library module, obviously. And in the library module, you've got the metadata tab right here. So we'll drop this metadata tab down, and you'll see that there's a file name section right here. And what I do is I go over to the batch edit options, and I will then select custom name and sequence. By default, it's just got custom name. But obviously what I want to do is I want to have all of my images in the gallery in a sequential order. This is great for keeping your images organized. So I'll go down to where it says custom name and sequence, and I'll select that, and then I will give it a custom name, and it will start at number 1 and then go through all of the images and rename them in sequential order. So you can see that I've got Marquee 1, and it goes all the way through to Marquee 186. Once all of the images are renamed in sequential order, I'll then begin a light edit across the gallery before I send them out to my clients as a proof gallery. In this 5th step, I will then export all of those images to a folder on my desktop. So in order to do that, I will select everything in the gallery, and then I'll go to File, Export, and I like to export the images at 100% quality and in JPEG format. I don't limit anything at this stage because I'm going to upload them to another service where my clients are going to get the chance to pick out their favorite images. So what I do is I'll go over to my desktop and I'll create a new folder, and I'll name it my client's name, in this case Marquee Proofs 2025, and I'll create a folder and I'll export all of those images into that folder on my desktop. Once I have all of the images exported to my desktop, I'll then take this folder and I'll upload it to a service called Zenfolio. Now, in a nutshell, Zenfolio offer you a professional way in which you can share your images with your clients. Now, on Zenfolio, I've got a proof gallery set up for my clients, and I will upload all of those images from my desktop into their proofing gallery. Now, this proofing gallery is set not to be downloaded because, of course, it's a proof gallery, and I also have a watermark set, so they can't just go and download the images. If we go and preview what this looks like to a client, you'll notice that it's beautifully laid out, and all the client needs to do is click on their favorite images that they want me to go and fully edit. So they'll go over to the heart and they'll heart it, and then they'll share that favorite selections with me. And then I'll go back into Lightroom and I will 5-star rate all of the images that they've selected in their gallery. You can see here, Marquee 13 has been selected, and I've gone and fully edited the image. Now, once I've got all of those images edited, I will select the filter by stars, and then I will export all of these edited images again to the desktop, and I'll prepare them to be uploaded back onto Zenfolio as a completed gallery. So if we go down to Portraits 2022, I've got all of their images uploaded to Zenfolio again. These are all of the completed images. Now, in this gallery, I've set the ability to download, and I've removed the watermark. So if we go and preview the gallery, you'll notice that all of the images are beautifully presented again, and the client can go and download all of their images. So they can go and select the images they want, and they can go and download all of them. Now, the great thing about doing it this way is that I've got a backup copy of my client's work sitting away from my system. If my house had to catch fire, if my computer had to blow up and the drives along with it, I'd still have a copy of my client's work residing elsewhere. The unedited images plus the edited images, they'll be backed up into this service. So there you have it, my friends. This is just my way in which I keep track of all of my clients. It makes the workflow nice and efficient. So folks, thank you very much for tuning into today's session. I hope this has been informative. And of course, if you found this useful, do subscribe to the channel. Click the notification to be notified when I release another video. So again, thank you so much for the amazing support. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next session. Cheers for now.